The West has started countering Russia's mounting offensive with sanctions that it had long promised. The UK has announced its first set of sanctions. The UK Prime Minister announced those sanctions in the House of Commons a while ago. Britain has targeted 5 Russian banks and 3 high net worth individuals with close links to the Kremlin. The concerned individuals are Gennady Timchenko, Russian billionaire and owner of the Volga Group, a private investment group, Boris Rothenberg and Igor Rothenberg, who are owners of the SMG Group, that's the largest construction company for gas pipelines in Russia. All these 3 individuals will be banned from traveling to Britain. UK individuals and entities will be banned from dealing with them and the banks as well.
The House should be in no doubt that the deployment of these forces in sovereign Ukrainian territory amounts to a renewed invasion of that country. And by denying Ukraine's legitimacy as a state and presenting its very existence as a mortal threat to Russia, Putin is establishing the pretext for a full-scale offensive.
Britain's opposition also welcomed the sanctions but said they were not enough to deter Russia. Britain has also summoned Russia's ambassador for talks on the Ukraine crisis. Let's talk about the United States now. It's considering new economic sanctions against Russia, proposing to cut some of its top banks from dollar transactions. Washington has already finalized trade and financial sanctions against Moscow after consultations with the leaders of France and Germany. America will announce its list of sanctions later today, it says. The European Union finance ministers, meanwhile, gathered in Brussels for a key meeting where they will be discussing details of the sanctions planned against Moscow. The bloc is likely to give out details of the sanctions today. With us on the broadcast from Kiev is Maria Zolkina, political analyst, Democratic Initiatives Foundation. Thanks very much, Maria, for being here with us. Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia's recognition of Ukraine's 2 breakaway regions is a precursor for further military assault. If you can establish for us and tell us more about the assessment in Kiev at this point and where do you see things headed?
Hello, nice to be with you today. From Ukrainian perspective, we really don't think that Putin will stop by recognizing with the DPR and LPR on the one hand, and by recognition of regular Russian army and regular Russian troops actually to be settled and dislocating in occupied areas. So we consider the yesterday's developments, this recognition of these self-proclaimed republics, as the first step to escalate situation on a new territory in Ukraine. So as of now, occupied Donbas, which is occupied by Russia since 2014, is the best ever platform for Russia to start any offensive land and maybe not even land operations against Ukrainian army, which is now along the whole division line with Donetsk and Lugansk so-called republics. And that is why for us, this is the beginning of a new stage of conflict, the new wave of aggression, where Russia will not hide its presence there anymore, because since 2014, regular Russian troops were based in occupied Donbas, but at the same time, Russia officially denies it is a party in the conflict. So now it denies its participation anymore, doesn't deny its participation in the conflict anymore. It's official, and so the threat is going up.
Volodymyr Zelensky has also called for clear and effective actions of support from international allies. Would you call the support that Ukraine has received so far as effective and enough?
In terms of, there are different types of support. So when it comes to arms supply to Ukraine, to the weapons, defensive weapons, which were provided to Ukraine during a couple of last months. So we have never had such an amount of weapons sold and provided to Ukraine as during this recent time. So here we have a lot of things which were already done, and we can say that to a certain extent we're pretty satisfied. But at the same time, as long as Russia the threat of aggression against, for instance, government by controlled by Ukrainian government territories of Donbas is increasing, so we have a necessity in further supplies in terms of arms to Ukraine. For instance, we have to create so-called safe sky above Ukraine, in order to have air defense system, which can be provided due to high technologies of NATO member states, and anti-missile defense system, which also lacks when it comes to Ukraine, but which is possessed by our partners in the West. So we are still waiting for some new military support. We will push forward now that Ukraine will be, let's say, lifted from some of credit money, which we have to serve as of now, at least to postpone, if even not to decline, some of, let's say, foreign debts, in order to leave money in Ukrainian budget and to support the army and the whole state system with this money, instead of serving our foreign credits. But when it comes to sanctions, we are not satisfied, because none of preventive sanctions were launched. And actually, it was one of the reasons, in our opinion, why Russia started the new stage of conflict and recognized so-called republics and officially, let's say, invaded Ukraine yesterday. We are not satisfied with the first sanctions which were introduced, for instance, by Washington. Nevertheless, Washington is the strongest among all our partners in terms of their rhetoric and policy towards Russia, but still they launched sanctions which actually were real since 2014, so nothing new was in place since yesterday. So we expect that sanctions should be stricter, sharper, stronger, and should include not only postponement, but at the same time, the full stoppage, for instance, of the Nord Stream 2, not just the postponement or the temporary block of an certification process, the full stop, the SWIFT sanctions, those personal sanctions, part of which have started being implemented today by United Kingdom, is a good direction and is the right direction, because personal sanctions against people who surround Russian president are of great importance for us, and they will have impact more than economic sanctions against the Russian state.
Right. The Kremlin says it hopes its recognition of the two breakaway Ukrainian regions as its independent would help restore calm. It asserts that Moscow remains open to dialogue. What do you make of that claim?
I don't understand how withdrawal of the only one existing peaceful agreements, which were Minsk Accords, can contribute to the peaceful process. So this is part of Russian manipulations. Yesterday, almost 40 minutes long speech of Russian president was fully based on propaganda, manipulations, misinterpreting pretty clear historical facts. So I think that due to his speech yesterday and due to his statements yesterday, the whole world, at least the Western countries who are rather soft towards Russia, they have now witnessed that the problem is not with the self-proclaimed republics, membership in NATO. It is about dissatisfaction of Kremlin, of Moscow, with the existence of independent and sovereign Ukraine. And they pretend to gain the control over the whole political process, all the political process taking place in Ukraine, and to control the state. So that's very threatening and scary, actually, scenario. And actually, that is why we have to make Ukraine as strong from economic, security, and military point of view as possible.
Maria Zolkina, thanks very much for being here on WION World is One and sharing those perspectives. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.